management, you guys should do that as well. And we should be good. So a lot of the materials that I pull in, my partner and I, so there's 2 technology coaches at my school. My partner's name is Robin. She's an ADE and a really great lady, knows a lot of great different things. But she and I approach tech very, very differently when we go into working with teachers in classrooms. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. She likes to invent her own wheel every time. She looks at great resources and so she likes to pull together, but she always wants to make it hers. That's a huge waste of my time because I don't have enough time to focus as it is. So I like to take somebody else's stuff, get their permission, and adapt it for my purposes. A lot of what you're going to see in here originally started with a guy named John Patton. He's out in Sylvan School District in California. And he started this session as a 5-day series he did with his staff. He's the IT director called Getting Googly. So I took some of their stuff. The stuff that he had was very, very basic. And I wanted to expand on it, but I thought it's a good launch point. So if you see me talking about the Getting Googly or my Googly A to Z session, you'll see some of those kinds of flavors that they come in there. But that's just a launch point for us. Google Forms have essentially, for those of you who are less initiated, 3 different phases. Okay? When we make a form, there's the back end of the form. There's the how I create it, there's the editing buttons, the less pretty kind of way on which I set that up. Then there's the public form, which I share with people and I collect data from. And then there's where the information from that collected data goes, which is the response destination. Now, hopefully I'm talking to the initiated here, so this isn't too much new information. But where this does get into trouble is, even with the beginnings of building the form, is a lot of people don't realize simple settings like making sure that it's not turned on just for your domain are really important if you want to collect information from anybody who's not part of your domain. A lot of schools, my school included, we have 2 domains. We have one for our students, and we have one for our staff. If you ever wanted to collect information from your student body, you have to make sure that you're not, have that little default tick which says only collect from your domain. Now, I tell you that because that's kind of basic information, but the importance is then when you're building your forms, there are a couple of default fields that you always want to have. And forms are going to allow you to do all kinds of things, but only if you collect the right data in advance. It's a real hassle to have to go back and massage your form. So we're going to build a simple form to start with. You're going to fill out a little bit of my form, and then we're going to play with it with a bunch of different add-ons. We're going to get into some really advanced ones like SheetSpider. SheetSpider, does anybody use SheetSpider? Good. We'll get into SheetSpider, we'll get into FormRooter. Hopefully you know names like Andrew Stillman. Who knows Andrew Stillman? Who doesn't know Andrew Stillman? Okay, who thinks I'm talking too fast? Brave enough? Okay, good hands for that. Then what we're going to do is we'll kind of jump in here and I'll show you a few things. So the forms, they allow you to do work. They allow you to accomplish all different kinds of things. What kind of work? Okay, well here's just a few options. Peer evaluation, formative assessment, book reviews, surveys, organized groups, volunteer opportunities, student feedback, just a host of different things. And hopefully most of you have seen, this is just a really basic one, but this is one that was kind of a rock star video from Google. And this is one that came out probably about a year ago. I'm not sure if we got speakers hooked up or not here, but let me plug in and we'll find out.
To a good college. Or my friend's gonna be, my friend's gonna stay the same.
Don't let people get you down and just be who you are. And it doesn't matter what people say about you.
I struggle with trying to fit in, making sure you have enough friends and are cool enough and that kind of stuff.
In high school, I was in the very same shoes that a lot of these students were. I didn't feel that I had anybody within the school building that I could go and talk to. I feel that the more I could connect with the students, the better experience they would have in my classroom in terms of learning.
It's hard for children to connect with adults. We don't feel comfortable. I just didn't like talking to teachers. They were big and scary.
Teenagers use technology a lot, like cell phones and texting. We definitely lack the face-to-face communication.
They used to have like a thing in school, you'd go talk to people, but a lot of kids wouldn't choose that because they didn't feel they could trust those representatives.
I needed to find a way that they can communicate to me, and I felt that if I could connect to them on a more personal level, that they would feel comfortable coming to me both about their academics and about things that were going on outside of school. I had been previously presented what Google Forms was at a technology conference. I could do even more with Google Forms, and I could ask them what was going on in their personal lives. What's one thing that you would like me to know about you?
I was diagnosed with arthritis and I have a bunch of medical problems.
They told me I was out of my sports. I was going through a really rough time. I just didn't care about anything anymore. I found out about a certain medical condition. Spring soccer wasn't going to happen. I was on the bad road. This doesn't make any sense. No teacher has ever done this.
It felt great to be able to share that with Ms. Kornowski.
It makes you feel like you're wanted.
She really didn't help me.
I feel overwhelmed. I didn't realize that invisible wall and that barrier that exists between the student and their teacher. We've been able to take a step through that screen, through that wall, and break that barrier.
So obviously very promotional, very Google, right? And some of you may have seen that video before. But the whole point of that is that there are a lot of different things that you can do with Google Forms. So I just want to kind of cast a little bit of a vision for that. And hopefully you can push back a little bit and say, you know what, I thought it was just kind of reflecting one kind of data, but there's a lot of different ways it can be used. Maybe I should turn off the next play video. It can be used for things that are workflows in classrooms. It can be used for ways to collect data. It can be used to grade stuff. If you use stuff like Doctopus and Gubrick and Flubru, there's a whole host of different things you can use. And probably my favorite group is New Vision's Cloud Lab, and it's a public school district in New York City. And it's headed up by a guy named Andrew Stillman. Now, I put him on here in the next page. If you scroll down a little bit on this link, there's a gurus to follow and people to take a look at section. And we'll go back to forms here in just a minute. But I'm going to reference his work a lot. And I want to tell you a little bit about why I really love these guys. I think that New Vision's Cloud Lab, what they did is they're a public school district in New York City. They've got about 50,000 students, and they've got nothing except for Google. They don't have PowerSchool, they don't have Schoology, they don't have Moodle, they don't have Blackboard, they don't have a report card system, they have Google. The guy who runs that was 6 years ago, a middle school science teacher who had never used Google before. So what you're seeing today and some of the things that you're going to do, they're going to go over your head. When I first got some of this stuff, it was like, what? Hopefully this is a good enough resource that you can use this to go back and learn more. We'll go too fast, that's almost guaranteed. But what these guys did and what they've been able to build is just fantastic, and you can use it very, very practically for some really neat purposes. Probably my favorite thing though is that actually 2 days ago, and these are their links to their Google Plus IDs. So if you're a Twitter person, then you may want to jump over some of the Google Plus stuff. You can catch them on Twitter as well. But I actually shared a chat with Jay Atwood in Singapore American School, another big Google guy in our part of the world, and to Andrew. And I said, I'm trying to figure out a way to push events from a Google Sheet into a calendar. I'd like to auto-populate it. My activities director came to me. He said, you know, we've got all these blackout dates. Everybody's got all these different dates that they want to have theirs as a blackout. Is there an easy way we could do that? And I said, well, you know, I've never used an add-on with a calendar before, but I'd like to take a look at it. So I wrote, and I just asked these two guys a question. I said, hey guys, do you know anything about this? Now, I've never met them. I met Jay. He was at the GAVE Summit at SFS here about a year ago. And I met him once. But he doesn't know me. I mean, he's got thousands of followers. I'm just some random tech guy he might remember basically from Korea. And Andrew and I have never met. He's in the States, I'm here, no connection at all. But I followed these guys, and then I started writing to them periodically. Andrew and I started talking with him actually about Site Maestro, which is an e-portfolio site. It does use Google Forms, but I'm not going to get into this because it's kind of a whole section that I do later on. But I actually started asking him some questions, and what I really like about these guys is when I get questions, they responded. It wasn't 2 hours after I'd written this on Google Plus, my time in Korea, that Andrew from New York replied and was like, yeah, actually, we're looking for something similar to that. Let me know if you find anything good. Okay. And that's a couple of the different exchanges I've had. So not only do I find that the stuff they're doing is really amazing, but he was a guy who didn't know anything, who now is kind of a master, but he's not so lofty that he's like, no, I don't talk with you small people. And that I find very accessible because I need to be able to ask questions. Like some of the stuff I'm like, ooh, that's really exciting, but now what? And so these guys are really, really good. So I would heartily encourage you, please check out Andrew Stillman. The other guy is John McGowan. He's kind of a new up-and-comer. He's been more recent. He's done the GMath add-on. Anybody use GMath? GMAF is basically a way to put, takes latex expressions, which probably you don't know what that means. It means computer code, math computer code, and turn it into what looks like fancy-dancy, little mathematical expressions, square roots and division signs, but it actually looks like that. But there's a language that goes with it that if you're like those calculators that I could never understand in high school and they still use, and there's like all those cool math programming functions, and the math teachers are like, oh. And they do all the amazing stuff that they do, and the rest of us, it's just like, I don't get it. He took that and he said, well, why can't we do that on computers? Because computers are way smarter than calculators. And so he started figuring out ways to add that in so you can actually add expressions into different parts of Google. Most recently, he's done the GMAF add-on for forms, which means if you build a form, and a form, remember, just a way of collecting any data, which means you could use a form as an assessment, or you could use a form to actually track things, or you could use it as a check-in point. But for teachers that were using it as an assessment, you can now use the GMAF add-on to actually put real math expressions, like not have to write it out, like like when we do it in Hangul here in Korea. Oh, you want to go to Shincheon? I think that's Shinchon, E-O-N, Y-E-O-N, and 12 different spellings, right? We get the romanized version. That's what math teachers were doing in Google Forms. Please divide, D-I-V-E, like just terrible stuff. And he said, well, what if we could just put those expressions in there? And he's done it. But his stuff is really, really cool because one of the things he's got now, it's when you have to join the trusted trial group, which sounds really scary. I'll show you the link, but basically it means you click on the page, you click on the link, you say join group. It says, are you sure you want to join? You say yes, and now you're a member. You too can be a trusted trial tester. And what he did is he built one called Form Creator. It's actually originally it was called Quick Quiz Creator. From a spreadsheet, you can actually pre-build a form now. Now, if you use forms quite a bit, that's wicked handy because I'm constantly having to show teachers new forms, and I'm constantly having to take existing forms and redo them, which means every time I got to go kind of the painstaking process of, and Andrew Stillman, he developed Form Ranger, which is a way to populate answers. I like that, but I had to actually manually map fields to answers from a spreadsheet to the actual Google form. I don't want to do that. I want to dump a bunch of data into a spreadsheet or into a document or copy and paste it from whatever source that I typed it in originally. And then I just want to click a button and magically make a form. And John McCown's the guy who made that happen. So there's some really, really neat things you can do, and they've made the workflows incredibly easy. So we're going to go through those, but it starts with a Google form. So I would like you to open your Drive if you haven't already. This document, the one that I've shared with you, you should already have made a copy of because you might want to add some notes for yourself like this sucks, or I love this, or he's the best and so handsome. You can add that anytime. And I want you to go in there. Also, if you want to, and this is a little bit self-promoting, but I realize it's like really the only way to build followership. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Google+. And if you'll do that, I'm happy to get in touch with you to chat about things as well. So that you know, the email address that I use for the conference is my work email. My actual one I actually respond to on Google+ is the same as my Twitter, and it's Jason R. Kaiser. So feel free to follow me and find out stuff there. But open your Drive, make some copies, and we're going to build a form. And to do that, I've got my first form right here. Now, if you're in this room and you don't know how I got to this page with a form, this may not be the right session for you because it means that you're not at a point where you even know how to find Drive and click form and build. But hopefully you're here and it's good. And the first thing you'll notice is I'm signed into my school's domain. Now, I want to use this with you guys, which means that I can't do that because you're not part of my domain. And if I do this and I build this great form, it's not going to be on there. So please, by default, just get in your head, you know what? I want a wider audience. Unless your students are on your domain and they're the only people you're collecting information from, it's just good to uncheck this by default. It says, are you okay to not sign in? And that's fine. One of the things I'll show you how to do, have any of you used data validation to do a password on a form? Hands up, yes. Hands up, no. Okay, good. Feel free to have your hands up. I like to talk, and you can ask or just look bewildered, but let's engage. We'll have some fun. We can use data validation instead of password on here, so you don't have to worry about people jumping into your form. But the first thing I'm going to do is I call this Google Forms making it work for you because this is my session, and you notice I've got a default question because when you create a new form, it does that. So the first thing you want to do is give your form some title. So you don't call it something like practicing with my form. All you do is you click your title. It says untitled form, and just type it in there. This is just for you, so it doesn't really matter what you want to do with it per se. You'll probably share it with a neighbor, and we'll make that nice and easy. We're going to go to question number 1 here. And there are 3 things you always want to collect. Always, 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 always. And a 4th thing if you're working with students. Last name, first name, always required questions. Email address, required question. Make sure to include data validation in emails so they don't screw it up for you. And my favorite number 4 is graduation year. Never ever go with grade, because if you go with grade, this year's 9th graders become next year's 10th graders. That's really a hassle. Graduation years never change. Well, for most of us, they never change. So graduation year is an easy way to collect data. So my form right here, and we're going to find out how old everybody in the room is, so don't be embarrassed. I'm older than I look, I hope. Let's see, last name. If I can spell, I do tend to get a little bit sheepish when I spell. I'm going to make sure that I check this as a required question, and then I don't really want this to be multiple choice because I don't want to have multiple last names. I want it to be text. Now, at this point, I'm too lazy to do anything else, so I'm going to click my duplicate button, which is next to the garbage button, which is on the right side. It's got 2 little pieces of paper looking thing. So I just kind of hover it, it says duplicate. So click that, and now I'm going to change this because I'm smart to first name. I like to put last name first because that's how I think when I sort. That's how I find stuff. Next, I'm going to duplicate it again, and this time I'm going to take out first name entirely. I'm going to put an email. But I have no faith in your ability to fill out a form accurately. This is every teacher's smart move. Never have faith in anyone to do things correctly because they fail, right? Your kids, you tell them 10 times, please name your document X, and it comes like untitled from Jane, and you're like, what the? I told you 12 times. So just click data validation right here, and I can make sure that my data has what I want it to have. So for example, I want this to be text, but it must contain the ampersand.
You can do email.
I could do the email, but since I'm collecting it from you guys, that would be terrible because you aren't going to have the same email that I can guarantee. If I did a specific email, I could do it if I was collecting it from a specific domain. Like if I knew all of you were gmail.com, no problem. Or if I knew all of you were for sure gsis.sc.kr, which is our teacher domain. Or if I'm working with my students, gsiscommunity.kr, because that's our student domain. I could put that in there. But if I put something other than that, then I might not get exactly the email I like. What were you thinking?
Well, you just do text and then next to an email address. Doesn't that mean it has to be an email address?
Right, so you could do that as well. There's different ways. That's actually a newer option. It just started populating. Cool. So actually you caught me out. I'll tell you right now, there are going to be things that I don't know. And the great thing about Apple, they always have a big showcase. Hello, here's our new thing, which is too expensive and won't come out for 4 months, and it'll probably make you have to buy 12 new dongles. Google's thing is like this. There's a new change. And then you're just like, oh no, I was doing a presentation and this didn't work the way. So that didn't exist before. Apparently, email address. So let's go ahead and we'll just do that.
Yeah, when you click contains.
Yeah, it automatically turns.
If you click on contains.
Click on contains.
Yeah.
There we go. Great. And this would be must be it's good to tell them what happens when it doesn't work.
Could you define the domain the email's coming from?
Yeah, that's what I like about the ad. If I go email address, it'll accept any email address, but it'll require that there's an ampersand. What I usually use this for is I usually make sure that my students, I collect data from 4th graders, 5th graders, and 3rd graders a lot. GSIScommunity.kr is a really long email handle for a grade 3 kid from India who's like, what? Or some of our Japanese kids who can't even say that. Okay, we have one kid in grade 3 who's just come. He's been here about a month. He's from China. It's full immersion English for him, and everything is shama, which means what? And that's like the only word that all the teachers know also. So that's the only thing we can shama, and then it's just gestures. And I think he said he ate eggs for breakfast. I don't know. So I would use a specific domain if I had a specific audience. In your case, I don't. So I'm gonna collect this.
Which is why you would use contains instead of email.
Right, and that's when I would just use maybe my ampersand and then my specific domain that I wanted to find.
Seems strange they don't let you define the actual domain.
Well,
Maybe.
if you go contains, the thing is everybody has a custom domain when you pick up your Google, right? So that they can't if they did predefined ranges, then I mean they'd have too many basically. So you make your own range, and that's pretty easy to do. So then after this, now I've got my 4 basics. Now the last thing I'm going to do, remember I said okay, we'll reload that. And my last one that I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate my email field here. I'm going to actually check this email, make sure it's required question, advanced setting, email address, great. I'm going to come over here to this one now, and I'm going to edit this one, and this one is going to be graduation year. And this is going to be, I can go a lot of different things, but I can go with a date. If I do this, so it says include year and include time, but this would actually require you to put a specific day on there. And you might not remember the day you graduated, most of us remember the year. Some of us have blacked that out entirely. So I'm just gonna leave it as a text, just because that's kind of easy. And again, it's a required question. And then one more, I'm gonna do favorite Google app, or favorite Google tool. and we can aggregate this out to you. And this one I'm gonna let be a paragraph text. You can type a long time if you want. And now I'm all done. Now at this point, I got this fancy little form that looks basically like this. This is what I was saying though, was that using one of the add-ons that we'll get to in a minute with Tom McGowan stuff, it can build this for you, because I have to manually type this each time. So let's say I want to do another session. The only reason I do it this way for you guys is because I want you to see how to build a form, because I want to assume that all of you are truthful and you know how to do it, but maybe some of you are like, I really don't know. So now you know, okay? When we do this though, I don't want to have to deal with this again. So I'm going to use the Quick Quiz Creator, or he's renaming it now, Form Creator, add-on later on. But for right now, this is my form. And we'll show you how it looks, because remember we said there's the front end editable, and then there's the viewable, and I can click on View Live Form. And it looks like that. Yay! Except that it's really not helpful for you because you have no idea how to get there. So there's a couple of things I'm going to do to change that real quickly. First thing I'm going to do is from my editing my form, I'm going to click my Send Form button. And you'll notice they've got the short URL. I can click that right here. This is a new feature. Google just introduced this about 6 months ago. It used to be that you had to go to like TinyURL or Google URL shortener. Now they've built it in. This is what they're constantly doing. And I'm going to copy it real quick. And I'm going to actually put that, we'll get to that in just a minute. I'm going to actually put that here in my form description. Now, by putting this in my form description, what it does is when I come over to my live form, now I've got this little tiny URL that I put right there in the text. Now, you were like, I still can't read that, so of course, then I do my Command plus because I'm a nice guy. And I'd like you to go to my form in just a moment, not quite yet, but you're going to go to my form in just a minute, and you're going to type this in, you're going to fill out my form. And then I'm going to have some data that I can work with, and we can play with some of the add-ons. Now, before I do that, you might have noticed that the response destination pop-up came. So this was over here. It says responses, and